October 18, 1979, Eastern North Carolina. A 21-year-old man takes a single drink of bad whiskey at an oyster roast and hops on his dirt bike. He doesn't even make it out of the yard. After a sudden crash, his pulse vanishes and his breathing stops. Suddenly, he felt himself whooshing forward through a dark, high-contrast tunnel toward a distant point of light. His immediate sensation was one of dread, a fear that he was heading toward divine judgment for his lifestyle. Instead of hell, he emerged into a landscape of mountains and a lake, filled with an overwhelming sense of home. He found himself being examined by a spiritual presence named Laura, who moved with the frantic urgency of an emergency room surgeon assessing a trauma patient. What followed was a massive, disjointed download of information. Laura delivered stern warnings about adultery, performed an intense inspection of a chronic skin rash he had in the real world, and flooded his consciousness with endless streams of numbers and complex star charts. He was only clinically dead for a few minutes, yet he was trying to process an impossible volume of hyper-vivid, confusing cosmic data. It was a lifetime's worth of sensory input packed into a moment. Then a voice commanded him to return. He felt his spirit whoosh back into his body, a sensation like charged plasma gushing life and heat back into an empty vessel. He came to in his cousin's car. He didn't ask about the accident or his injuries. His only concern was the time. He desperately needed to know how long he had been gone. His friends, still shaking, told him he'd been out for maybe 2 minutes. To them, it was a brief scare. To him, it felt as though hundreds of years had passed while he was on the other side. He survived the crash, but the experience left him in a heavy depression. He was back in his old life, but he was now holding a complex set of memories and instructions that he had no way of explaining. He spent the next 45 years trying to find the logic behind those 2 minutes. The first pattern he had to understand was a stern warning from Laura. She had commanded him, with absolute gravity, to remember one thing: do not commit adultery. At 21 and unmarried, he took the warning literally. He assumed he was being judged for his earthly behavior, viewing the message through the lens of traditional religious guilt. But years of reflection changed his perspective. In that realm of infinite light, adultery appeared to describe something much larger than a broken marriage. He came to see it as breaking one's connection to God, the act of placing any earthly thing above that source of unconditional love. The vision had a practical, physical side, too. Laura had been fixated on a chronic, allergic skin rash that covered his body in the real world. She told him that if he quit drinking and smoking, the condition would clear up. When he finally followed that advice, the incurable rash vanished almost instantly.
He began to see his encounter not as a trial, but as a specific diagnostic intervention. He wasn't being punished. He was being given a set of instructions to heal his body and his spirit. Then there were the more abstract elements, the endless streams of digits, the celestial grids, and a bizarre logo that didn't yet exist. This is the Microsoft Windows logo. He saw these exact colors and shapes in 1979, years before the software was ever designed or released to the public. Decades later, he finally recognized the streaming digits from his vision. They formed the Fibonacci sequence, the mathematical foundation for the golden ratio of 1.61. This ratio dictates the spiral of a pinecone, a hurricane's path, and a spinning galaxy, linking intuition to universal architecture. This map reflects the star charts he later studied. In his 60s, he realized the complex grids and azimuths from his vision were detailed maps of universal awareness, showing how our consciousness is woven into the night sky. Skeptics, including figures like Joe Rogan, argue that these visions are simply the product of N-dimethyltryptamine, or DMT, a chemical the brain may release during birth and death to create a hallucinatory mind movie. While a dying brain might trigger a hallucination, it struggles to explain the source of the information. A chemical trip can produce lights and colors, but it rarely downloads the specific mathematics of the Fibonacci sequence or the details of a corporate logo decades before they are created. By the age of 67, after decades of meditation and study, He felt he had finally reassembled the pieces of that 2-minute puzzle. He focused on the most profound part of the memory, the white light emanating from behind the mountain. It was a light that felt like substance, pouring out an intensity of peace that words cannot describe. He views this light as a literal generator of the Trinity. In his firsthand experience, love, peace, and joy weren't just emotions, but 3 separate physical forces powering the universe. Whether the origin of the experience was neurochemical or divine, the result was a total transformation. He returned with a specific, functional understanding of the world that he simply did not possess before his heart stopped. The real-world stakes of those 2 minutes were immense. It cured a lifetime of depression, healed a chronic physical disease, and removed his fear of death. He realized that life on Earth has a very specific purpose. While our time here is short, it is a vital part of a much larger journey that should not be rushed. He views the self as an immortal spirit being currently having a human experience, a perspective that makes the world feel infinitely richer and more abundant. Enlightenment looks like the active curiosity we bring to these interconnected mysteries while we are still here. It's about recognizing that there is immense love and calming peace available to us right now, if we only know how to look for it.